Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Haruno Sakura was extremely confused when she woke up. First of all, she was buried beneath what had to be mountains of paperwork. It was so much, she wasn't even sure she was still on a bed. She peeled a document off her cheek, glared at it clearly, and let it flutter back to the pile. Second of all, and far more concerning, the great Uchiha Sasuke-sama was cuddling. No, seriously. Her gaze slowly lowered to the arm wrapped firmly around her waist. There was no mistaking it. He was spooning her, his hand resting right on her hip, anchoring her in place like she belonged there. Her brain short-circuited for a moment. Tilting her head back, she studied his face. He was still asleep. His breathing was deep and even, and he was curled on his side, just like he used to sleep when they were genin. That much hadn't changed. But what had changed was his personal space. Back then, Sakura hadn't been able to get within 5 feet of him without being shot a frosty glare. He had practically radiated a "do not approach" aura. Not that it ever stopped her, or Ino for that matter. They threw themselves at him every chance they got. It was cringeworthy now, looking back on it. She sighed inwardly. She had been annoying, hadn't she? Sasuke-kun. Sasuke-kun. She chirped like a broken record. She'd worn out his name like a rusted shuriken, clumsy and overused. But that girl was long gone. When he came back, things had changed. She still loved him. That hadn't wavered. But her love had matured. Grown deeper. It didn't need loud declarations anymore. She showed it quietly, through healing him without being asked, through thoughtful gestures, like packing extra soldier pills for his long missions or remembering to bring his favorite tea after a long day. She didn't need to fling herself at him anymore. It just showed. The difference now was that her affection wasn't outright rejected. It was simply ignored politely. A small victory, perhaps, but a meaningful one. At least now, Sasuke acknowledged her presence with something warmer than a cold shoulder. That alone was worth more than the world to her. Her fingers brushed against his bangs, sweeping them away from his eyes. Still asleep. Sakura's breath caught. Was he getting used to her being there? She studied him, gaze drifting to his lips. Could it be? Anyone who saw them together could tell something was going on. It wasn't subtle. Their bond was evident. She wasn't foolish. She knew there were feelings on some level. But what were they exactly? Was it love, or was it just her wishful thinking? Sakura had loved him for so long, it almost hurt to hope. It had always been unrequited, or at least, that's how it felt. She knew when he asked her to help rebuild his clan, it hadn't come from a place of love. It was logical, practical. She had the genetics. She had the chakra control. She was loyal. But was that enough? Sakura sighed and let her head fall against his bare chest again. Her eyes swept over the scattered paperwork piled around them, drowning them in white. She vaguely remembered Sasuke reading a small stack before she drifted off. Had he been working all night? She gently unwrapped herself from his hold, just enough to reach for a nearby paper. But the moment her fingertips touched the page, a hand seized her wrist. Startled, she looked up into Crimson's Sasuke. He blinked once, twice, still groggy. Then he plucked the paper from her hand with a small frown. "It's police work, Sakura," he said sharply. She flinched. She hadn't meant to pry. She was just curious. Wait. Her eyes widened as she sat up. "These are all police reports?" she asked, voice rising in disbelief. Why didn't you go to the office for this?" Sasuke narrowed his eyes. It was far too early for interrogation. He could tell her the truth, that he stayed because he didn't want her to sleep alone. After what happened last time, he refused to leave her vulnerable again. But that would sound weird. Creepy. Even. He rubbed his face tiredly. "I didn't feel like it." Short. Dismissive. Safe. "Don't you have a home office?" Sakura wasn't buying it. Of course she wasn't. She wasn't Naruto. She wouldn't fall for a lazy excuse. So, like any emotionally repressed Uchiha, he did what he did best, he walked away. Sasuke. Sakura called after him, confused. Sasuke. She sat there in stunned silence as the sound of running water echoed from the bathroom. He was in the shower. Was he just grumpy from being woken up? She wondered, tapping her finger to her chin. Her gaze returned to the bed, to the sea of papers. Police reports. He could have done them anywhere, but he'd chosen here. With her. Thump. Her heart skipped. No, 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 no. She pressed her hands to her burning cheeks, trying to calm the fluttering in her chest. Maybe he just wanted a soft surface to work on. Maybe the desk was uncomfortable. She reached for logic, for reason, but her traitorous fingers slid up to her collarbone, resting above her wildly beating heart. She couldn't hope. She shouldn't hope. Hope meant risk. Hope meant the possibility of being wrong again. Her eyes shut tightly. It was impossible. Wasn't it? Iruka sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. Naruto, he said tiredly, have you even bothered to practice the sacred dance at home? Naruto, dressed head to toe in the ceremonial robes, golden embroidery catching the sunlight in swirling patterns, grinned defiantly. Beside him, Hinata stood in elegant contrast, her kimono trailing like flower petals in the breeze, her hands delicately folded in front of her. Of course I have. Naruto huffed, puffing his chest. Hinata's been helping me, said Uzumaki blushed, bowing politely to Iruka. He returned the gesture with an equal bow. After all, when the future Hokage's wife showed respect, you matched it without hesitation. Iruka-sensei, Hinata said, her voice like the rustle of fresh spring leaves, Naruto will be ready by the festival. I have full confidence in him. She turned to Naruto and offered a gentle, proud smile. That alone seemed to recharge him. Yosh! He shouted, fist pumping the air. I'll be amazing, Datbeo. Iruka slapped a hand to his forehead and glanced sideways. Sasuke, he muttered, mind helping me with this? Sasuke, standing off to the side, inspecting the placement of ceremonial torches, smirked. He sauntered over, his single arm drawing his dark cloak tighter over one shoulder. He looked up at the couple standing on the platform reserved for the Spring Festival's opening ceremony and clicked his tongue. All the help in the world won't save him from himself, he said coolly. Let's just hope he doesn't impale Hinata with the ceremonial sword. Why? You. In his attempt to lunge at Sasuke, Naruto managed to trip over the heavy hem of his robe, half spinning until his hat flopped forward and his sash slipped loose. He landed with an undignified thud. Iruka's sweat dropped. Some things never changed. From the top, you too, he sighed. Sasuke watched as Hinata gracefully bent to help Naruto to his feet, the way her hand brushed his arm, so gentle, so steady. He felt a strange twinge in his chest as the memory of Sakura touching him flashed in his mind. His frown deepened. The hell was that about? Oh yeah, Sasuke-tem, Naruto said as he straightened his robe, now more wrinkled than ceremonial. Gaara's coming, so I need you to round up a security detail. Sasuke blinked. What? You know? Naruto scratched his head, protocol crap. Not like Gaara needs a security detail or anything. But Kaka-sensei insists. You've got to be kidding me. Sasuke's voice was quiet and deadly. You're telling me this now? 2 days before the festival. He was already massaging his temple. The cage is coming to the Konoha Spring Festival, and you didn't think to tell me earlier. I kinda forgot. Sasuke's eyes twitched. Behind them, the ceremony rehearsal continued. Naruto and Hinata turned, stepping into synchronized motions. He held the ceremonial sword, she the blooming fan of Konoha. Their movements, despite everything, were fluid. Almost graceful. Sasuke glared at Naruto as if sheer will could erase him from existence. I have officers stationed all over the village for festival prep. No one's on call for diplomatic security, Naruto. His tone was acid. That's not something you just drop on me. Naruto looked sheepish. You'll have Shikamaru's help. He's on a mission, you idiot, Sasuke snapped. He won't be back until tomorrow. Which means I have to prepare everything today, so he can look over it tomorrow, the day before the festival. Hinata spun the fan in a perfect arc and offered politely, I'm sure you can do it, Sasuke-kun. Sasuke blinked, some of the tension ebbing away. Hinata had that effect on people. Calm, supportive, reassuring. A stabilizing presence in the chaos that was Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto, meanwhile, wasn't done being a menace. Oh yeah, he said, grinning slyly. Are you excited to see Sakura in a kimono? Maybe hold her hand under the Sakura blossoms. Hinata's eyes darted towards Sasuke with a sparkle of mischief. Sasuke raised a brow but didn't take the bait. I doubt I'll have time for festivities, done. While you're making a fool of yourself in public, I'll be guarding your sorry ass. Naruto barked out a laugh. Then I'm as good as dead. Sasuke scoffed. No argument here. Pay attention, Naruto. Iruka barked. Too late. Naruto stumbled again, this time crashing directly into Hinata, sending them both tumbling like a pair of overgrown dandelions in the wind. Fans, swords, and dignity went flying. This is hopeless, Iruka muttered, facepalming. Naruto popped up with a sheepish grin. Sorry, Hinata. As Hinata sat up, rubbing her elbow, Naruto looked up in time to see Sasuke turning away. Oi, where are you going, Tem? Sasuke threw a smirk over his shoulder. To fix your mistake. And maybe, salvage this diplomatic disaster before Kakashi finds out. Take a deep breath for me, Sakura said gently, her stethoscope pressed to Temari's chest. Relax. That's it. Good. Temari obeyed, albeit a bit stiffly. Her eyes flickered to Sakura's face, searching for any sign of concern. There was none, only calm, practiced focus. Of all the people in the 5 great shinobi nations, Temari trusted Haruno Sakura the most with her health, and now, with her babies. Her reputation as the most skilled medical ninja was more than earned. If anyone could help her through this new, terrifying chapter, it was her. You're doing great, Sakura added with a reassuring smile as she stepped back and motioned for Temari to lie back on the padded exam table. Temari sighed and grimaced, lowering herself down. Sorry, she muttered. It's a little hard to stay relaxed when my best friend is about to shove her fingers inside of me. Sakura snorted. You're not the first to say that, and you won't be the last. She pulled on a fresh pair of gloves with a loud snap and grabbed the bottle of lubricant. Comes with the job. Temari flushed. Still, this is weird. Sakura offered a softer expression. If it's too weird, I can always bring in another medic nin. No, Temari said quickly, sitting up an inch before catching herself. No, I trust you. I'd rather it be you than a stranger. This is my first, you know. I want to make sure everything's perfect. Sakura's gaze softened. Of course. She gently guided Temari's knees apart and positioned the speculum with practiced ease. Let's make sure that baby of yours is doing just fine. To distract her, Sakura asked, when did you find out? About a week ago, Temari answered, her voice tight as she shifted her gaze to the ceiling, trying to ignore the cool pressure. Sakura nodded. How did you feel when you found out? Temari gave a breathy laugh and tightened her grip on the sides of the table. Honestly, scared. I didn't know how Shikamaru would react. She winced slightly. I mean, he treats Kurenai's kid like his own, so I should have known he'd be okay with it, but. As beautiful as pregnancy is, Sakura murmured, adjusting the instrument and checking Temari's cervix with quick, gentle hands, it's still scary as hell. Temari laughed again, shakily. You sound like you've done this a million times. I have, Sakura said. And not just the medical part. People walk in here with more fear in their hearts than injuries. My job's not just to heal the body, sometimes, I've gotta heal the anxiety too. She looked up with a playful twinkle in her eyes. So, how'd he take it? Temari's eyes softened. I told him as soon as I got to Konoha. At first, he looked pissed. He kept calling me troublesome. I thought he was mad about the baby. But it turns out, he was upset that I traveled here alone without telling him sooner. He would have come with me. Sakura smiled knowingly. Fatherly instincts are already kicking in. That's a good sign. Now arch your back a little. Tamari adjusted herself as asked, her face tightening in discomfort. You know, for someone who's never seen me naked in a hot spring, you're getting very familiar, she joked. Sakura chuckled. Don't take it personally. I've been elbow deep in places no one wants to talk about. Consider yourself a VIP. Tamari laughed. I'm getting more action from you than from the Uchiha. Very true, Sakura replied with a dramatic sigh. How's that going, by the way? Tamari asked, trying to sound casual. He is still pestering you about rebuilding his clan. Surprisingly, no, Sakura said with a shrug. But he has been acting weird. I woke up the other morning surrounded by police reports. He'd abandoned his office to sleep in my bedroom. Tamari cackled. Sounds like romance to me. Maybe he'll finally marry his job and stop stressing you out. If only, Sakura smirked, carefully closing the speculum and removing it with practiced care. Congratulations, though. You're healthy as ever. Baby looks like they're off to a strong start. Tamari visibly relaxed and hugged her stomach. That's such a relief. She smiled brightly. Now I can tell Kankuro and Gaara when they get here for the spring festival. Sakura blinked. They're coming. Of course, Tamari grinned. It's not every day you get to see Naruto make a complete fool of himself during the flower dance. Sakura's laughter burst out. True. Besides, Tamari added, eyes softening, Gaara misses Naruto. He won't say it out loud, but I know he does. They haven't seen each other since the last Cage Summit. Sakura nodded and peeled off her gloves. I hope he gets to. Naruto's been so busy prepping for the festival, he barely has time to eat. Tamari swung her legs off the table and began untying the hospital gown. Speaking of busy, before things get crazy, I wanted to ask you something. Sakura turned back from washing her hands. What's up? Tamari dropped the gown to the floor, revealing her usual black dress beneath. She hesitated, cheeks slightly pink. Will you deliver my baby? Sakura blinked, then smiled. Though it wasn't her favorite part of the job, the request filled her chest with warmth. You got it, Sakura said with a smirk. Thanks, Sakura, Tamari said, zipping up her dress. I knew I could count on you. Sai wasn't known for being emotionally intuitive, not at first. But over the years, he had grown, thanks to Naruto, Sakura, and even Sasuke himself. And now, as he stood in the doorway of the police lieutenant's office, watching papers fly and chakra simmer off Sasuke's shoulders, Sai figured someone had to say something. Are you shitting me? Sasuke growled, papers fluttering wildly as his chakra flared. Naruto expects me to draft another protection plan for the Cage after we have already covered the entire village. What does he think I am, an intern? Sai blinked. I'm not sure interns are legally allowed to hold that much anger in their chakra network. Sasuke shot him with a death glare. Why are you even here? Sai ignored it. He was used to them. Naruto asked me to check in on you, he said plainly. He was worried. I'm fine, Sasuke snapped. Yes, Sai said, walking further into the room and tilting his head. That's why you're currently reading that document upside down. Sasuke blinked and looked down. Huh, so he was. He growled again, crumpling the paper and tossing it aside. Sai moved closer, his expression still neutral, but his voice more curious now. Did you give her the flowers? Sasuke stared at him. Sakura, Sai clarified, like Sasuke didn't know who he meant. I did, Sasuke muttered, running a hand down his face. She thought they were an offering for my family's altar. I don't know why she would think that. I gave her sakura blossoms, for crying out loud. There was a long pause. Sai studied him for a moment, then asked, You didn't know she was the one who maintained your house while you were gone, did you? Sasuke stiffened. What? Sai raised an eyebrow. The garden, the floors, your family's altar. She's the one who kept it all in order. She told Ino once that she wanted the Uchiha grounds to feel like home when you came back. Not like a tomb. Sasuke stared at him, speechless. She even memorized your family tree, Sai added, softer this time. Cleaned the dust out of scrolls you probably haven't even touched yet. Make sure your mother's dishes don't crack from the cold. Sasuke clenched his jaw. I thought you knew, Sai said. But I guess, you really don't see the things she does when you're not looking. Sasuke's fist tightened on the desk, but he didn't speak. Sakura loves you, Sai said, walking to the edge of the desk. In how she remembers things. Maintain them. Protect them. For you. Sasuke looked down, his face shadowed. Sai crossed his arms. If you want to love her back, maybe you should start seeing her more clearly. Silence. For a moment, Sai thought the Uchiha wasn't going to respond. Then Sasuke slowly rose from his chair. His posture was rigid, but there was a strange vulnerability in his movement. Sai, he said. The artist turned back to him, and froze. There was a faint shimmer running down Sasuke's cheek. Thank you, Sasuke murmured. Sai gave a small nod. Don't thank me, he said simply. Just don't wait too long to thank her. Sasuke nodded. Sai paused. Does this mean we're friends now? Not even close, asshole. Haruno Sakura sat at the kitchen table with a steaming cup of tea in front of her. She cracked her neck. Damn, that felt good. She was exhausted after a long day at the hospital. She had long since eaten dinner by herself. She glanced at the clock. It was late. Was Sasuke going to return home or was she going to have to wait up for him the whole damn night? As if on cue, the front door of the Uchiha household clicked and swung open. She sighed and took a long sip of her tea. Sasuke was finally home. I'm home, she heard Sasuke's low voice murmur as he entered the kitchen. Sasuke raised an eyebrow at Sakura. He wasn't expecting her to still be awake at such a late hour. He felt panic stab his heart. Did she have a nightmare? Was that why she was up? Ah, Sasuke, Sakura said sleepily. I was about to go to sleep. That answered his question. He tried to suppress the smile tugging at the corner of his lips. I made dinner for you, Sakura yawned, rubbing her stiff neck. It's in the oven if you want it. She inhaled sharply. She didn't want him to think she had gone out of her way for him. I just made a little too much for myself, so. Arigato, Sasuke interrupted her. Sakura smiled through her exhaustion. You're welcome. I have to do a night shift for the police, Sasuke said as he opened the oven. Don't wait up. Sakura tried to hide the disappointment in her tone. So you're leaving again. Sasuke curled an eyebrow up. He didn't let her see. Could it be that she wanted him to stay? No, he said as he pulled the curry out of the oven, I brought my work home. Sasuke turned to find Sakura looking relieved. He set the plate down on the counter. The cage is coming to Konoha, Sasuke briefly explained. So I have to rework the protection plans. Sakura nodded. Temari told me today. Sasuke's eyebrow curled upward. Temari. He didn't realize she was friends with the fangirl. He tilted his head curiously. The woman was carrying Shikamaru's child. Did Sakura know? Sasuke, noticing her hands still pressed up against the side of her neck, narrowed his eyes. Is something wrong? Sakura asked lightly. She noticed his gaze. No, I'm just a little stiff from work today. He made his way toward her. It's nothing to worry about. I'm not worried, Sasuke said as he pressed his fingers to the nape of her neck. Sakura blinked in astonishment. She couldn't comprehend what was going on. Was Uchiha Sasuke? She didn't dare look over her shoulder. Was Uchiha Sasuke massaging her? She relaxed as he worked his palms into the knot she had. Kurenai had mentioned that if, by chance, Sasuke did massage her, it was her job to make it sound as sexual as possible. With it feeling so good though, that wasn't difficult to accomplish. Sakura hummed softly. Uchiha Sasuke looked down at her pink head. Was it really true what Sai had said? Was she the one to take care of the compound while he was away? It did seem plausible. She was one of the only members of Team 7 left in Konoha when Naruto and he went to train with Jiraiya and Orochimaru. Plus, she seemed to be completely obsessed with him when they were younger. He vaguely wondered if some of that obsession could have carried on into her adult years. No, Sakura seemed to have a good head on her shoulders. She wasn't chasing after him like they were 12 anymore. Ah, Sakura hissed in pleasure, harder. Sasuke felt a chill run up his spine. He was just massaging her neck. There was no need for him to get excited over a phrase like that. She leaned into him, letting him work his magic into her muscles, and she let a moan escape her lips. Sasuke swallowed. Sakura was just grateful for the neck massage. It wasn't like she was actually getting turned on by this. It wasn't like he was getting turned on by this. Ah, that feels so good, Sakura said, letting her back sink against his lower abs. Sasuke immediately pulled his hands away. That was enough of that. He needed to stop before she noticed his arousal poking out from under his pants. Sasuke? Sakura asked, blinking up at him innocently. What's wrong? Nothing. Sasuke managed to get out, walking away from her so she could only see his back. She tilted her head. Sasuke. She slowly stood from her seat. Where are you going? I just need a shower. Sasuke managed to get out. A very cold shower, he silently added. Go on and get some sleep. Sakura glared at his back as he walked out of the kitchen. Was she not sexy enough? She looked down at her disheveled clothes that revealed a bit more than she was used to. Was she doing something wrong? Sakura shook her head. No. If it had been any normal man, they would have surrendered right then and there. She was positive about it. She knew she was attractive. She knew what she was working with. She wasn't hit on by strangers for nothing. She frowned and sank back in her chair. Then what was she doing wrong? Was she not coming on strong enough? She ruffled her pink hair in frustration. Maybe Naruto was right. Maybe she needed to be more straightforward with these seduction methods, because what she was doing didn't seem to work all that well. Look at this, Tsunade-sama. Ino announced, proudly thrusting her hand forward with a sparkle in her eye. A modest but elegant ring shimmered on her finger. I'm engaged. Tsunade smirked over her bowl of ramen, barely pausing between bites. Ino had returned from her mission that morning and insisted Sakura treat her to celebratory noodles, claiming it was long overdue. Congratulations, Tsunade said, voice light with cheer. This definitely calls for some sake, don't you think, Shizune? Shizune groaned softly. No, I don't. Tsunade ignored her completely and clapped Ino on the back with hearty approval. Give some of that luck to Sakura, would you? Sakura gave her mentor a side-eye glare. Sasuke's already asked me to help rebuild his clan twice. She took a sip from her glass of water with an unimpressed expression. If you start wishing me luck, he might just ask a third time. Tsunade chuckled and slurped at her udon. You two going to the festival? Yes, Ino said brightly. No, Sakura answered flatly. 3 pairs of eyes whipped to stare at her in disbelief. Sakura ignored them, calmly sipping her broth and nibbling at a slice of pork as if she hadn't just dropped a social bomb at the table. Why not? Ino asked, the wind knocked right out of her celebratory sails. I was hoping we could all go together. Naruto and Hinata have their hands full with planning, obviously, but I was thinking, you and Sasuke, Shikamaru and Temari, Sai and me. Sakura raised a brow. And Choji? Ino gave an awkward laugh. He's got a special relationship with food. Plus, Karui's visiting her family in Kumo, so he's probably not in a festive mood. I'm still not going, Sakura said with a shrug. My kimono got burned in the fire. Ino's face fell. You can borrow one of mine. Oh, I couldn't, Sakura replied with a polite smile. She tried to laugh it off. It's fine. I've got a backlog at the hospital anyway, so you don't have to worry about me. Tsunade narrowed her eyes. Did you ask the Uchiha about his mother's kimono? Sakura nearly choked. What? No. That'd be way too much to ask. Tsunade scoffed. You already wear her clothes around. What's one more? I bet that bastard would like it, too. Blushing, Sakura shook her head. I'm not just going to ask him for his mother's kimono. Don't worry about it. You guys go enjoy the festival. Ino huffed. Like hell I'm accepting that excuse. Come to my place tomorrow before the festival. We'll get you into one of my kimonos, no problem. She narrowed her eyes and added with a mischievous smirk, unless you're too fat for it. Sakura's jaw dropped. Why? You. She smacked Ino upside the head. You're coming to the festival, Ino declared stubbornly. That's the bride's order. Sakura chuckled, shaking her head. Alright, fine. But only on 2 conditions. Ino perked up. Shoot. 1. Don't use this as an excuse to turn it into some matchmaking extravaganza. Sasuke would not be amused. Fair. And 2. She turned to Tsunade with a deadpan look. Don't let Naruto set you on fire this time. I remember that, Ino snorted, nearly inhaling her noodles. Didn't he try to put it out with Temari's fan? Made it worse, Shizune laughed. Set her entire ass on fire. Tsunade glared at her. You weren't exactly helping, Shizune. The stage caught fire too, Sakura added with a hum, chopsticks still in her mouth. Those poor actors didn't stand a chance. Tsunade sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose. Every year that festival makes me doubt Naruto's ability to run a village. Are we sure he should be our future Hokage? Well, this year should be better, Shizune said optimistically. Sasuke-sama's handling security. There won't be any fire within a 10-meter radius of Naruto. Sakura giggled behind her hand. Just make sure he's not carrying any weapons. He might accidentally run someone through with a sword. Isn't there a sword in the flower dance? Ino asked thoughtfully. Shizune sighed dramatically. We're all going to die. Sakura finished her ramen and tossed enough money on the table for both her and Ino. She stood, stretching. I've gotta get back to the hospital. She turned to Ino with a pointed look. Engaged or not, you're still on shift today. The team's been struggling without you, and don't even try to use your mom's flower shop as an excuse. I know she's got it handled. Ino grinned. Sure, forehead girl. Can't live without me, huh? Sakura rolled her eyes. Can't live with you. She gave in a gentle pat on the back, a small smile tugging at her lips. But it's good to have you home. Sasuke barely looked up when the office door creaked open. Yo, Shikamaru greeted, strolling in like he had all the time in the world, which grated on Sasuke's last nerve. What the hell is this I hear about you scrapping our entire security plan? Not exactly what I wanted to hear from Kakashi first thing when I walked into his office. The Uchiha didn't bother responding right away. His Mangekyo Sharingan spun lazily as he flipped through several scrolls and reports at once, the glow from his eyes casting faint shadows on the cluttered desk. Papers covered nearly every surface. His handwriting was sharp, aggressive, he had already made annotations on 3 different versions of the new layout. His whole body was tight with tension. Shikamaru's gaze flicked to the bags under Sasuke's eyes. Damn, he muttered. You look like hell. Sasuke set his pen down and finally glanced at him. Did you come here to help or waste more time with commentary? Troublesome, Shikamaru muttered, rubbing the back of his neck. Kakashi told me Gaara's coming. Is that true? Sasuke nodded sharply. Yesterday. Naruto forgot to mention it until after I finalized the initial plan. Shikamaru exhaled slowly. So we're back to square one. Pretty much. He moved forward and picked up one of the newer drafts from the desk. You really pulled an all-nighter for this? He asked, eyes scanning the contents. You could have called someone for help. Sasuke didn't answer. Of course he could have. But it wasn't in his nature to rely on others unless he absolutely had to. Last night, he'd barely eaten, hadn't slept, and still had Sakura's warmth pressed into the back of his mind, curled up on his lap, completely unaware that her proximity had shattered any chance he had of focusing on sleep. Not that he wanted to mention that. Instead, he said, I'm not about to take chances with the cage's safety on our turf. Shikamaru gave a short nod. Fair. But next time, don't run yourself into the ground before the mission starts. We need your head clear tomorrow. I'm fine. You're lying, but okay. He looked down at the pile of drafts again. I get why you're going this hard, but you're not doing this alone. This kind of prep's a team job. Sasuke narrowed his eyes but didn't argue. We need to move fast. I'll get Choji, Lee, and Tenten, Shikamaru said, already forming a plan. You bring in Kiba, Sai, and Yamato. We'll pool together a full unit and divide roles for oversight, gate security, and crowd control. Sasuke raised an eyebrow, impressed despite himself. It took you all of 10 seconds to assign half the roster. Yeah, well, Shikamaru said, shrugging. It's what I do. There was a pause. Your place or mine for the meet? Mine, Sasuke said. It's closer to the main square, and I've already got maps spread out there. Shikamaru made a face. You're going to make us walk into that chaos? Don't like it, Sasuke said dryly. Get there first. Shikamaru sighed. Troublesome bastard. Sasuke smirked faintly. That was about as close as they'd get to friendly banter. Shikamaru leaned in one last time and locked eyes with him. Seriously, though, you push any harder, you're gonna collapse mid-festival. Get a few hours of sleep after we prep tonight. We've got your back. Sasuke stared at him for a moment. Then gave a slow nod. Fine. Shikamaru straightened and gave a short wave. See you in an hour. With a flicker of chakra, he vanished in a cloud of smoke. Sasuke leaned back in his chair and exhaled. The room was silent again, but not heavy. He could admit it, even if only to himself. Having people who actually gave a damn, who showed up and took over without needing to be asked, was reassuring. Still annoying, though, but reassuring. He reached for another scroll. One more draft before the others showed up. Just one more. Then maybe, just maybe, he'd sleep. Haruno Sakura absolutely adored baths. There was something deeply soothing about them, like slipping into a warm embrace after a long, exhausting day. The soft scent of lavender and chamomile lingered in the steam, curling around her like a dream. The flickering candlelight danced along the walls, and the gentle lapping of water against the porcelain tub created a rhythm that lulled her into serenity. Sakura let out a soft sigh and sank deeper, until only her shoulders and the tips of her pink hair floated on the surface. Yes, this was her happy place. She reached for the washcloth draped over the tub's edge and gently scrubbed her arms in slow, circular motions. The warm, soapy water clung to her skin before sliding away, carrying with it the tension of the day. Her legs stretched out lazily, feet dangling over the edge, just enough to let the water lap at her hips. Idly, she scooped up a handful of bubbles and blew on them, watching them scatter like glitter in the air. She really shouldn't be taking her time. Sakura's gaze flicked toward the closed door. She knew Sasuke was home, she had felt it, the subtle shift in the air the moment he stepped into the apartment. That quiet presence of his, always composed, always unreadable, had settled into the space like a second heartbeat. He probably wanted to use the shower or get ready for bed. And yet, she couldn't bring herself to move. It was too perfect here. Too peaceful. Too warm. Besides, she told herself with a smile, she needed to be thoroughly clean for tomorrow. The annual spring festival was finally here, and she wanted to look and feel her absolute best. A giddy little laugh bubbled in her throat as she swung her feet off the ledge and slipped them back beneath the water. The warmth wrapped around her ankles, her calves, drawing another contented sigh from her lips. She was actually going to the festival, lanterns, food stalls, fireworks, and all. It had been ages since she let herself get excited over something so simple. Sakura lifted one leg out of the water and started scrubbing it. She had turned off the lights and was burning candles that were nearing their end. She'd never admit it to anyone, but she most definitely had fantasies about the Uchiha heir. She smirked at the melting wax. Oh yes, she had fantasies. She couldn't count how many times she had bathed and just wished for Sasuke to burst through the door, whisk her away, and have his hot, passionate way with her, all the while proclaiming his undying love for her. She squeezed the wet cloth above her head and closed her eyes. PFF'd. As if, like that was ever going to happen. She was nearly finished washing her body when the candles she had lit slowly dimmed. She frowned. She'd have to get out soon. But she could wait until they were fully finished to do that. She still had to enjoy herself. So by candlelight, she let her hand trail down her stomach and toward her aching core. Since she had to throw out her useless vibrator, and since she shared a platonic bed with Sasuke, there wasn't much time where she could pleasure herself. Having the bathroom to herself, she decided then was as good a time as ever. Plus, she slyly looked at the unlocked door. If Sasuke was around, he would be able to hear her moans. She blushed like crazy and half wondered if she could go through with the plan. She had never been lewd, but she wasn't so shy she couldn't try it out. Anything was worth a shot to her at that moment. She nodded fiercely and gulped. It was now or never. She let her fingers slide into her entrance, fully aware that water was rushing in. Sakura leaned back and let her chin rise slightly so her gaze was toward the bathroom ceiling. She felt nervous. She shut her eyes tightly. She needed to not think about Sasuke listening to her. She needed to think about him, hot and heavy above her, lowering himself deeper inside of her. She arched her back more. She made her way into the folds and gently rotated. Why? Just the slightest touch. Sakura used her fingertip to sweep along her clit. She let out a moan. Yes, the medic ninja knew exactly what she was doing. Her body was a sacred temple that needed to be satisfied with offerings. And boy, was this one hell of an offering. She huffed as she inserted a third finger inside, stroking her throbbing core soothingly. With her other hand, she softly rubbed her soft pink nipple. Sakura licked her soft, wet lips. How she longed for Sasuke to open up the door and ravage her body. She wanted him to plunge deep inside of her, burrowing inside her crevices and tearing her apart at the seams. She had to muffle her gasp as she felt herself become wetter with desire at the thought of the Uchiha. Oh, but she couldn't do that. She had to let him hear her. He had to know how much she wanted him. He had to know how she wanted him. Mo, she groaned, her feet curling in pleasure, Sasuke-kun. With a whoosh, the candles burning faded to nothingness, and Sakura was left in the dark. The dim light no longer pressing against her eyelids, Sakura was thrown into a world where Sasuke was hers to keep. He was hers to have and to hold. He was hers to love. She pressed her lips against his bare chest and licked his delectable skin. He shuddered from pleasure, but that wasn't good enough. She wanted him to scream her name. She let her tongue trail over his earlobe, feeling his moan right down to the tips of her toes. Sasuke grabbed her by her ass first, pulling her closer so he could run his lips over her plump breasts. He sank his teeth into them, lightly nipping here and there. It was enough to mark her with love bruises, but not enough that it hurt. Sakura hissed. At that moment, though, she wanted pain. She wanted to feel pleasure so powerful that it would make her heart bleed from it. She dug her nails into his back as he flicked his fingers along her aching vagina. I want you, she panted, now. But he wouldn't give himself to her fully. No, he was content with teasing her. He pulled away his fingers and tasted her juices. He hummed in approval and gave her a smirk that shook her to the core. In a moment's breath, she was up against the wall with him thrusting inside of her. Sakura, she moaned. His cock felt so good. It was thick and long. It really pushed through her vagina. He unsheathed himself. Sakura. He plunged himself once more inside of her, gripping her hips tightly. Motto. Sasuke-kun. Sasuke leaned in to press his lips against hers and. Sakura. What the hell? Her jade eyes shot wide open and looked in the dark to find a figure. She blinked. She shifted in the bath to get a closer look. There, looking at her with wide eyes, standing in an open doorway, was Kiba. It took her a moment to realize what was going on. To snap back to reality. And once she did, she only had one thing to shout. Shanaru. Uchiha Sasuke was in the middle of leading the protection plan meeting in his living room when a scream pierced the air. Sakura. His muscles locked, and his eyes immediately flicked toward the hallway. Without hesitation, he bolted up from his seat. His sword was drawn before his thoughts could catch up. Whatever had caused that scream, whatever had made her sound like that, was about to die. Swiftly and without mercy, he turned the corner at breakneck speed, and nearly crashed into Kiba, who was slumped on the floor, clutching his face, blood pouring from his nose. Sasuke froze mid-stride. His eyes narrowed. Kiba was bleeding. The bathroom door behind him was shut tight. What the hell happened? Sasuke demanded, tone sharp and dangerous. Motherfucker. Kiba spat, groaning in pain. She broke my damn nose. Sasuke's brow twitched. His grip on the hilt of his sword tightened as he processed the scene. He glanced at the door, then back at Kiba. What happened? Sasuke asked again, this time slower, more deliberate, the threat clear in his voice. Kiba groaned, head tilted back as he tried to stop the bleeding. I didn't mean to. I just opened the door to use the bathroom and she, bam. Out of nowhere. She didn't even give me a second to speak. Who did this to you? Sasuke asked again, jaw clenched. Who do you think? Your woman, that's who. Sasuke's eyes narrowed. Sakura didn't go around punching people unless she had a damn good reason. If it had been Naruto, Sasuke wouldn't have batted an eye. But Kiba, something didn't add up. He folded his arms, analyzing. Kiba had mentioned earlier that he needed to use the bathroom, and Sasuke had casually pointed him toward the nearest one. That happened to be her bathroom. His gaze slid toward the door again. Why hadn't Kiba knocked? Instead of responding, Sasuke marched to the door and did what Kiba should have done. He knocked. Sakura, he said, voice low but steady, what happened? Are you okay? There was a beat of silence. Then shuffling. Then her muffled voice came through. Don't come in, she called quickly. I'm not decent. Sasuke's hand froze just before the doorknob. Ah. She was naked. His eyes slowly slid back to Kiba, who was still struggling to keep his nose from pouring blood all over the hallway floor. Sasuke's blood boiled. The fury that spiked through him wasn't just anger. It was primal, territorial. You're dead. The words left his lips in a low, dangerous growl. Not a threat. Not a bluff. A promise. Before Kiba could respond, Sasuke's hand shot out and wrapped around his throat. In one fluid movement, he lifted him and slammed him back against the wall, the impact shaking the pictures hanging nearby. Stop. Kiba wheezed, flailing. I didn't see anything. I swear. Sasuke didn't care. The very idea that someone, anyone, had walked in on Sakura in a vulnerable state sent his mind into a red haze. Whether Kiba had seen anything or not didn't matter. He had trespassed. He had invaded. Footsteps thundered down the hall. Sasuke. Shikamaru's voice cut in, his tone tight with alarm. Put him down, came Sai's voice from behind. Sasuke ignored them. His eyes never left Kiba, whose face was rapidly turning red from lack of oxygen. It was only Sakura's soft voice, trembling slightly, that cut through the roaring static in his mind. Sasuke. He felt her hand grab the back of his shirt. Her fingers curled into the fabric, grounding him. What's going on? She asked, confused and breathless. He didn't answer. His focus was singular, on the man in his grip, on the betrayal of safety that had occurred right outside her door. Sasuke, she said again, more firmly this time, stop. Sakura winced, stepping closer. Honestly, this was a bit much, even for Sasuke. Sweet, in a terrifying, death glare sort of way, but still unnecessary. Kiba hadn't even seen anything, the bathroom had been pitch black, and she had knocked him into next week before he could so much as blink. She reached out again, voice gentler. Sasuke, please. Still, he didn't move. So she did the only thing she could think of. She stepped fully against him, slipping her arms around his torso, pressing herself into his back. Her cheek rested lightly between his shoulder blades. He stilled. That touch, her warmth, her trust, was the only thing that could reach him. It's okay, she said quietly, voice muffled by his shirt. Kiba didn't see anything. I promise. Slowly, reluctantly, Sasuke's fingers uncurled. Kiba dropped to the ground in a gasping heap, coughing violently as air rushed back into his lungs. Sakura stepped around Sasuke and knelt in front of Kiba, a sheepish smile on her face. Sorry, she said with a small laugh, trying to diffuse the tension. I should have locked the door. Kiba peeked through his swollen fingers. It's my fault, he muttered. I should have knocked. Damn right, Sasuke thought darkly. Sakura lifted her hands and placed her fingers gently over his nose. A soft green light glowed between them, and Kiba let out a long, relieved sigh as the pain eased. Behind them, Shikamaru groaned and ran a hand through his hair. Troublesome. Sasuke's glare snapped at him. Let's get this meeting over with. Without another word, he stalked past everyone, jaw tight, still simmering with restrained fury. Shikamaru trailed behind him. Sasuke. He didn't reply. He wasn't angry anymore, not exactly. What he'd mistaken for rage had been something deeper, something fiercer. It wasn't jealousy. He knew what jealousy felt like. No. This was something else. Concern. Possession. A need to protect that ran bone deep. Back in the living room, the others stared as he re-entered. Sasuke sat down stiffly next to Sai. You good? Sai asked with a bright smile. Sakura okay, traitor. Sasuke didn't look at him. Sai, he muttered through clenched teeth, shut it. Haruno Sakura had spent most of the evening doing everything in her power to avoid Uchiha Sasuke. After the whole Kiba incident, the mortification was too much. She'd barricaded herself in her room, only venturing out to grab food or use the bathroom. The last thing she wanted was to meet Sasuke's eyes and be reminded that her dignity had all but gone up in flames. What Sasuke didn't know was that while Kiba hadn't seen her naked, he had certainly heard her. Loud and clear. Inuzuka had the nerve to smirk and crack a crude joke about it the moment Sasuke left the room. Sakura's face burned hotter than the sun, but her fist burned hotter. She'd broken his nose again and this time, refused to heal it. Let him suffer. Maybe next time he'd learn not to bark up the wrong damn tree. Now, after hours of her best stealth attempts, she was creeping back to her room with a plate of leftovers in hand when she stopped cold. Standing directly in front of her bedroom door, expression unreadable, was Sasuke. Cornered. With no other option, she followed him wordlessly through the Uchiha complex, heart pounding with each step. He hadn't said a word, not about the earlier incident, not about Kiba, and definitely not about why she was now standing in front of an ominous, locked door she'd always been too afraid to tamper with. Sakura swallowed hard. She remembered the first time she'd tried unlocking one of the old Uchiha sealed rooms. The backlash of chakra had silenced her for 3 full days. She hadn't made the mistake again. Whatever was behind these doors wasn't meant for just anyone. Sasuke stood still in front of the double doors. His jaw was set, and something about his silence felt heavier than usual, like he was about to cross a line he'd drawn for himself a long time ago. He turned away from her and weaved through a series of hand signs, his fingers moving fluidly with purpose. Pressing his palm against the large seal embedded in the lock, he murmured something under his breath. The metal groaned as it released with a sharp click, and the chains fell to the floor with a heavy clatter. Sasuke caught the lock and tossed it aside. He turned back to her, his expression solemn. "What I'm about to show you," he said, voice low and deliberate, "you can't tell anyone about it. Not ever." Sakura blinked. Her breath caught in her throat. A secret? From Sasuke. Her stomach flipped. She shifted nervously. While she and Ino shared everything, this felt different. This was serious. Sacred. She wasn't just a medic here, she was being trusted with something deeply personal. Her oath of confidentiality had always come with boundaries and expectations. This felt heavier. Still, her gaze locked with his. She took a breath. "Sasuke," she said softly, "you can trust me." He nodded once, satisfied, and turned to push open the doors. Darkness swallowed the space inside, but with a snap of his fingers, a flickering flame burst to life in his palm. He tossed it forward, and it shattered midair, like embers from a firework, splintering into hundreds of tiny flames that rose toward the ceiling and hovered like stars. Sakura stepped forward, wide-eyed, until she stood beside him. Her hands flew to her lips. Sasuke. She was breathless. The room was filled with Uchiha artifacts, heirlooms of generations past, robes, scrolls, weapons, ceremonial ornaments, all preserved in perfect condition. The air itself felt reverent, like walking into a shrine of lost history. But Sasuke didn't look at the room. He looked at her. He watched as her emerald eyes took in every detail, tender and reverent. Her awe made the ghosts of his clan feel less lonely. Less bitter. Sakura turned toward him slowly. Her voice trembled. "Why are you showing me this?" She whispered. This is too sacred, isn't it?" Sasuke didn't answer right away. Instead, he motioned for her to follow as he led her deeper into the vault, past displays of armor and ornate scrollwork, past portraits and ceremonial fabrics folded with precision. He stopped before a set of vibrant red robes hanging delicately on display. "This," he said, brushing a hand lightly over the fabric, "was what my mother wore during the last Konoha festival she attended." Sakura felt her knees weaken. "Makoto-san." She barely choked out the words, emotion clogging her throat. Again, she asked, more shaken this time, "Why are you showing me this?" Sasuke let the fabric fall from his fingers. He turned slightly, glancing back over his shoulder. "I don't know," he said, a smirk tugging at his lips. "Why am I?" Her eyes widened. There was a look in them he couldn't ignore, one of wonder, yes, but also something deeper. Something warm and fragile and barely contained. She clutched one hand tightly around her wrist, her other still resting against her mouth as if trying to hold in all the feelings surging forward. Sasuke saw it. All of it. He turned fully toward her, taking one step closer. Her lips parted slightly, her breath catching as their eyes locked. There was heat between them now. Tension that had nothing to do with the treasures around them. He could see it. Her desire, her confusion, her unspoken hope. He wanted to pull her into his arms. He wanted to say what he'd buried for so long. He wanted to stop running. But instead, he walked right past her. The warmth shattered. Cold air rushed in to fill the space he left behind. "Just make sure you lock up after you leave," he said, voice clipped. He paused, added, "Come to bed when you're done." And then, before she could speak, before she could gather her voice and whisper thank you, or maybe don't go, he was gone. Vanished like the ghost of his clan, leaving her standing in the dim, flickering glow of firelight and memory. "I still can't get over it," Ino squealed, practically bouncing as she tugged on Sai's arm and looked at everything the Konoha Spring Festival had to offer. "You actually got to wear Makoto-san's kimono." She gave Sakura a hearty slap on the back. You sly, sneaky little minx. Sakura blushed fiercely, raising the Uchiha fan in her hand to hide the blooming pink on her cheeks. The soft swish of the fabric as it fluttered felt like the only thing grounding her in that moment. It was more than she could have ever imagined. Sasuke hadn't just given her any kimono. He'd given her his mother's kimono. And more than that, he'd granted her access to the Uchiha family vaults, the sacred heart of his clan. She hadn't told a soul. Not even Ino, who was saying something. The secret she shared with Sasuke felt like a silent thread between them, something unspoken yet immensely powerful. It meant trust. Real trust. And from him, that was everything. Yeah, seriously, Tenten chimed in. How'd you manage to pull that off? I mean, it's Sasuke. Sakura gave a nervous laugh and scratched at her cheek. I don't know. He just showed it to me. But I'm still wondering how he even knew I needed a kimono in the first place. Your stuff got torched in the fire, Choji pointed out matter-of-factly between bites of skewered grilled chicken. He probably figured you needed something decent to wear. Logical, Shikamaru added, shrugging. Even for an emotionally stunted genius like Sasuke. Sai tilted his head thoughtfully. I do not believe Sasuke is quite that observant. While his skills are admirable, his understanding of emotional nuance, particularly involving women, is severely lacking. He tapped a finger to his chin. For instance, when he asks Sakura to rebuild the Uchiha clan, he is in fact proposing sexual intercourse. However, he is skipping several critical steps such as courting, bonding rituals, and the mutual acknowledgement of romantic intent. Look, Sai, Sakura cut in, flapping the fan in his direction. An art contest. Sai paused mid-sentence, intrigued. Oh. Ino smirked and leaned toward her. Nice save. Sakura sighed in relief as their group shifted direction, following Sai and Ino toward the contest booth. Tenten. Lee called out dramatically. I'm going to win you a stuffed monkey. Sure, Tenten laughed, sweat dropping as she let him lead her away. You know it's just for fun, right? You don't have to go all in. Youth demands I go all in. Lee huffed. Sakura hung back a bit, slowing her pace. She glanced at Choji beside her and subtly raised her fan again to conceal the soft frown tugging at her lips. Almost everything about tonight felt perfect. Almost. Sasuke wasn't there. He hadn't seen her in the kimono yet. He hadn't seen how it fit her, how her hair had been carefully styled to complement it, or how her eyes searched the festival crowd for him every 5 minutes. She knew it was his duty to watch over Gaara for the night, to serve as his personal escort during the festival. But did he really have to miss the whole thing? She glanced toward Shikamaru and Temari. He had one arm slung casually around her shoulders, the other resting protectively over her rounded stomach as she murmured something close to his ear. Sakura bit her bottom lip. That was what she wanted, that. Not just the duty, not just the protection, but the connection, the emotion, the kind of love that burned so deeply it couldn't help but spill over. Suddenly, something warm and greasy was thrust in front of her face. Sakura blinked and looked up. Choji grinned down at her, offering her a takoyaki ball skewered on a stick. Cheer up, he said, voice muffled by the food still in his mouth. You'll see him soon enough. She took the takoyaki and popped it into her mouth with a soft smile. Oh, she said, chewing thoughtfully. And what makes you think I want to see Sasuke? Choji chuckled knowingly. Come on. You wouldn't have worn that kimono if you didn't want him to see you in it. Sakura flushed, swatting his arm lightly. Choji turned his attention to the others. Hey, anyone wanna go see Gaara? Temari lit up. Yes. Shikamaru gave a small shrug. It didn't matter to him, though he was inwardly wondering when Temari planned to tell her brothers about the baby. It wasn't that she was hiding it, she was proud, excited even. But she was nervous. Kankuro was terrible with kids in Gaara's past, well, it wasn't exactly ideal uncle material. Still, Shikamaru's hand lingered over her abdomen, and he smiled. Whatever happened, their child would be loved. That was all that mattered. Meanwhile, Sakura found herself in an unexpected moment with Choji. He'd slung an arm around her shoulders, drawing her close in a warm, protective gesture. The scent of grilled meat clung to him, but Sakura found it comforting. Familiar. Safe. We don't hang out much, she said softly. But I'm glad you're here. Choji grinned, then leaned in with a sly look. All you gotta do is ask, you know. Sakura laughed, leaning up and planting a quick kiss on his cheek. Arigato, Choji. He flushed beet red and scratched the back of his head, suddenly bashful. Damn, Sakura. Are you trying to get Sasuke to murder me? Sakura smirked. I beat Kiba up, remember? Sasuke doesn't scare me. Choji raised both hands in surrender. Message received, loud and clear. Uchiha Sasuke's temple throbbed like a drumbeat of restrained rage. He had no complaints about guarding Gaara for the night, it was his duty, and he took it seriously, but having Kankuro within breathing distance was enough to make him consider tossing a kunai at the nearest tree just to let off steam. Gaara was fine, quiet, observant, cool-headed. Sasuke could work with that. But Kankuro? I still can't believe the traitor is guarding you, the puppet master snorted, not even trying to lower his voice. Honestly, what kind of sick joke is that? Sasuke's fists clenched at his sides. It wasn't his job to protect Kankuro. If the man just so happened to trip and land face first into a vendor's dango stick, well, accidents happened. Kankuro chuckled, glancing at Gaara. Come on, seriously. What the hell is wrong with this picture? Kankuro, Gaara said evenly, not even glancing away from the children attempting to scoop goldfish from the pool in front of them. The tone was enough. Kankuro, ever the sharp older brother, shut up immediately. He stuffed his hands in his pockets and frowned as he watched the kids. Children always made him uncomfortable. Back in Suna, whenever Gaara wanted to stroll through the streets, the kids would swarm like sugar-high bees, begging for puppet shows. No matter how many times he explained that his work wasn't a circus act, they didn't care. Puppets were fun. But here, these kids weren't even glancing his way. Maybe the scowling, brooding Uchiha beside him had something to do with that. The guy radiated an aura so cold and uninviting that it could freeze boiling water. Maybe the traitor was useful after all. Gaara, however, was fixated on one particular child, a tiny girl, no older than 3 years old. She had just managed to scoop a goldfish onto her paper paddle and, in a triumphant flick, sent it sailing into her plastic bowl. Her joyous squeal lit up the area more than the festival lanterns ever could. Moved by something unspoken, Gaara stepped forward. Sasuke, ever alert, matched his stride, his posture subtly shifting into protect mode. Gaara knelt beside the pool and smiled gently at the child. Congratulations, he said quietly. The little girl looked up at him and froze. Her eyes widened in recognition or maybe fear. The container slipped from her hands and splashed back into the pool. The goldfish made a break for freedom. Her lower lip quivered as she stared down at her empty bowl. Kankuro watched the scene, one brow raised. Even now, after years of peace and leadership, Gaara's past still casts long shadows. But if there was one thing that hadn't changed, it was how much Gaara adored children. Their innocence fascinated him in a way that adults never could. I'm sorry, Gaara murmured, picking up a fresh paddle. With slow, deliberate movements, he dipped the fragile scoop into the water. The fish darted away. The paper paddle tore. Undeterred, Gaara discarded it and tried again. And again. Each time, the paddle gave out before he could catch anything. The girl watched, hesitant at first, then a giggle slipped out. Gaara blinked and looked up. She was beside him now, her tiny frame leaning into his side as she grabbed his hand. You do it like this, Kay, she giggled, guiding his hand. Together, they scooped. The goldfish danced on the edge of the paddle before plopping into the bowl. Her delighted squeal made Gaara's heart flutter. Thank you, he said, handing her the bowl. And I'm sorry. Sasuke noticed a couple standing a short distance away, watching warily. The girl's parents, no doubt. They whispered back and forth, clearly concerned about their daughter's interaction with the cage. Sasuke couldn't blame them, not really. But seeing Gaara now, so gentle and patient, it was hard to reconcile that with the blood-soaked boy he'd once fought. The girl hugged her bowl and skipped away. But before Gaara could rise, a second child, a grubby little boy, maybe 4, appeared out of nowhere and tugged on his robes. Gaara looked down, surprised. The boy beamed up at him like he was meeting a superhero. "Oi," his parents called nervously from a nearby stand. Kankuro stepped forward instinctively, scowling. He hated that people still flinched when they looked at Gaara. They didn't see who he was. They only saw who he used to be. "Kankuro," Gaara said again, calm but firm. His brother paused, then reluctantly stepped aside. The boy didn't wait for permission. He clambered right into Gaara's lap and reached for a paper paddle. Gaara let out a soft breath and followed his lead. The girl had returned, too, curious. She knelt beside them again, determined to be part of the fun. "What's your name?" Gaara asked her as they tried to scoop another fish. "Yuri," she answered proudly, once again helping guide his hand. "And you?" he asked the boy. "Hiroko." The boy chirped. "What about you?" Yuri asked, peering up at him. "What's your name?" Gaara smiled. "Gaara." She giggled. "Gaara Oni-san." He nodded solemnly. "Ah." From his place leaning against the tent pole, Sasuke sighed heavily. This was starting to look less like a mission and more like an impromptu daycare. Gaara might have mellowed, but Sasuke was still Sasuke. He didn't deal with children. "Who's he?" Hiroko asked, pointing at him. "Will he play with us too?" Gaara turned to look at Sasuke. There was mischief in his gaze. Challenge. Expectation. Sasuke returned the look with narrowed eyes. A silent war passed between them. And then, with all the grace of a man accepting the inevitable, Sasuke dropped to one knee and let Yuri clamber into his lap. His eyebrow twitched. His jaw was set. He was so not built for this. After this, Gaara said, catching a fish for Hiroko, "I want to see Naruto." "Ah," Sasuke muttered, resigned, as Yuri handed him a paper paddle with a big grin. "Sakura-chan. Sakura-chan." Naruto called out from the stage, his voice booming with excitement. "Check it out." He spun in a dramatic circle, his ceremonial robes flaring out to reveal intricate new designs embroidered in gold and crimson. "Pretty cool, huh?" Sakura groaned and smacked her forehead. Could the future Hokage please be a little more dignified? He was about to perform the flower dance, for crying out loud, the traditional dance passed down for generations. And here he was, spinning like a dork in front of half the village. The crowd pressed in tighter around her, and she instinctively moved closer to Choji. She cast a glance down the line at Temari, checking on her. Temari looked calm enough, but Sakura could tell the older Kunoichi was pushing herself too hard. She should have been sitting down by now. They'd tried to find Gaara earlier in the crowd, but the cage had vanished into the sea of festival goers. With Temari already feeling dizzy from walking too much, Sakura had lied and told people she was just a little anemic. Sakura sighed and rose onto her toes, scanning for any sign of Sasuke. There was no way he'd miss this, not when Naruto was about to humiliate himself in front of the entire village. Choji, noticing her struggle, wordlessly reached down, wrapped his strong arms around her waist, and hoisted her up until she was perched on his shoulder. "Better?" he asked casually. "Why yes," Sakura said, surprised but grateful. She searched the sea of faces, hoping to catch a glimpse of dark hair and a brooding scowl. "I'm sure I'll find Sasuke like this." Right then, the lights dimmed. The flames around the stage were extinguished, plunging the audience into hushed darkness. Sakura's sweat dropped. "Figures. It's okay," Choji, she sighed. You can let me down. We'll find him after this. Choji gently lowered her back to the ground, making sure she was steady before releasing her. He opened his mouth to say something, but the sharp notes of flutes cut him off. The performance was starting. Nay, nay, Hinata, Naruto whispered as he stood center stage, back to back with his wife under the spotlight. Everyone's watching us. Why yes, Naruto-kun, Hinata replied, her grip steady as she raised her ceremonial fan and caught it midair with practiced ease. She wasn't going to mess this up, not for him. As Naruto moved into the powerful stance symbolizing war, she flowed beside him in a graceful, peaceful form. She flicked open the fan before her face and fluttered it gently, offering a shy smile to the crowd. I'm looking forward to dancing with you for many years to come, Naruto whispered as he swept past her with a prop sword. A shiver ran down Hinata's spine. She slid one foot behind her, lowering into a poised defense. When Naruto lunged, she caught the blade with her fan. With a practiced snap, she twisted it from his grip and sent it spinning into the air. The crowd gasped as she caught it effortlessly and held the blade to Naruto's throat. The pair moved across the stage, her holding the sword steadily while he pretended to surrender. He gripped a nearby pillar and swung around, knocking the weapon from her grasp. She countered by drawing a second fan from her obi, snapping it open in front of her face. Wow, Ino whispered beside Sakura, eyes wide. He's actually pulling it off. Sakura snickered. That's only because Hinata's covering for him. But even as she laughed, her eyes flicked to where Tamari had been moments ago, only to see her spot empty. Where's Tamari? She murmured, just as she noticed Shikamaru was gone too. Her stomach twisted. Amazing. Choji gasped as Hinata flipped backwards away from Naruto, who had retrieved the sword again. Who knew Naruto could be graceful? Please don't ever use graceful and Naruto in the same sentence again, Sai said dryly. That's an oxymoron. You're an oxymoron, Sakura muttered, still scanning the crowd. Her eyes narrowed. Ino, Sakura said suddenly, I'll be right back. What? But Naruto's actually doing well. He hasn't tripped, exploded anything, or broken a bone yet. Sakura clapped her hands in apology. Sorry, but I have to. Yeah, Ino sighed, waving her off. Just go. Sakura darted into the crowd, weaving through villagers with urgency. Something was wrong. She could feel it in her gut. She pushed past shoulders and ducked through small gaps, her sandal catching and snapping painfully along the way. Her foot throbbed, but she didn't stop. And then, she slammed right into a firm chest. A strong arm caught her before she could stumble. Sasuke, she gasped, trying to catch her breath. Have you seen Tamari? Gaara stepped out from behind Sasuke, brows already drawn tight at the mention of his sister's name. Tamari. Sakura looked from the Uchiha to the cage. Gaara-sama, she said, her voice tense, have you seen her? Gaara didn't answer right away. He turned to Kankuro, who shook his head grimly. Then Gaara looked back at Sakura, his eyes narrowing. No, we haven't. Shit, she hissed, pulling herself out of Sasuke's arms. If you see her, come find me, I have to keep looking. She didn't get far. Gaara was suddenly beside her, easily matching her pace. She glanced at him, startled. Something's wrong, he said flatly. Tell me. She and Shikamaru left suddenly, Sakura said, glancing over her shoulder at Sasuke and Kankuro, who had joined them. She might need help. Gaara's gaze snapped to hers. Why? What's wrong with my sister? Sakura hesitated. Confidentiality, she clenched her jaw. I can't say, she muttered. But we have to find her. Now. Gaara gave a sharp nod. Sasuke. Kankuro. Split up and search. Sasuke frowned. That's not happening. I'll be fine with Sakura, Gaara said without missing a step. That's a direct order from the cage. Sasuke didn't like it, but after a beat, he and Kankuro veered off into the crowd in different directions. Sakura swallowed hard, heart thudding in her chest. She hoped Temari was okay. But the knot in her stomach was tightening, and fast. Damn it, woman, Shikamaru muttered, pacing a short distance away as Sakura pressed her glowing green palms to Temari's stomach. Don't scare me like that. He ran a hand through his hair and turned his face toward the wall. Troublesome woman, trying to give me a damn heart attack. Gaara stood frozen nearby, his eyes wide and unmoving. When they'd found her, Shikamaru had been laying Temari's unconscious body on a bench, all color drained from his face as he barked half-coherent plans about what to do next. Tactician or not, he'd been utterly lost, until Sakura had arrived. And though Gaara didn't yet understand what was wrong, the fact that Sakura was using medical ninjutsu was enough to set his nerves on fire. She'll be all right, Sakura reassured for what felt like the 1000th time, sweat beading on her brow from sustained chakra use. And the baby? Shikamaru asked immediately, voice low, urgent. Gaara blinked. He turned sharply toward Shikamaru, his teal eyes narrowing. The baby? Sakura looked up, caught between the gazes of two very different men with one shared worry. She's just overly fatigued, she said gently. But yes, the baby is fine. Temari groaned softly and squinted up at them, clearly disoriented. Sakura helped her sit up slowly, one arm behind her back. Gaara's expression didn't budge as he stared at his sister, taking her in now not just as his sister, or as a shinobi, but as something fragile and deeply, terrifyingly precious. Are you sure? Shikamaru demanded. Stop yelling, she mumbled, her voice hoarse. Didn't you hear her? I'm fine. The baby is fine. Everyone is fine. Kankuro and Sasuke had just caught up, only to freeze mid-step. What the hell? Kankuro sputtered, looking between them. You're pregnant. Sakura and Temari exchanged a glance, seasoned, tired, and knowing that it was now damage control time. Everyone, calm down, Sakura ordered, her tone clipped and professional as she stood upright. I was going to tell you guys, Temari grumbled, pressing a hand to her forehead as Shikamaru rubbed her back. Just after the fireworks. When things weren't so damn dramatic. Can someone get her some water? Sakura asked. Kankuro disappeared before anyone could volunteer, vanishing back toward the festival like a blur. You need to take it easy, Sakura said firmly. No standing too long. No heavy lifting. You can still train and run if you feel up to it, but don't overdo it. Not until we get more regular checkups going. Sure, Temari muttered. When you're ready, Sakura added, Shikamaru's going to carry you home. Temari bristled. What? But, it's troublesome, Shikamaru sighed. And you're heavy as hell, but I'll do it. Temari narrowed her eyes. Excuse me, Temari, Gaara said quietly. She looked at him, and for a moment, the sarcasm drained from her face. Her youngest brother, gentle, composed Gaara, looked as shaken as she'd ever seen him. Children adored him in Suna. His rare, soft smiles lit up the entire village. But when it came to this, the idea of pregnancy, childbirth, she knew the memory of their mother's death still haunted him. I'm okay, Gaara, she said softly, placing both hands over her belly. Don't worry. She yawned and slumped against Shikamaru again. But I guess this means you'll be visiting Konoha a lot more. Gaara didn't answer. He was still trying to make sense of it. I got it. Kankuro called from afar, sprinting toward them with his arms absolutely loaded with bottled water. Choji followed right behind, juggling a mountain of snacks from nearly every food stand in the village. Sakura blinked as she spotted the others, Ino, Sai, Naruto, and Hinata, rushing toward them as well. Temari winced. I told you to get water, Kankuro. Not recruit an army. He thrust a thumb over his shoulder toward Choji. He said you might be hungry. You look like a damn hoarder, Temari groaned. Just wanted to be prepared, Kankuro muttered, clearly uncomfortable. The idea of being an uncle had never once crossed his mind. Hell, he didn't even like kids. Now, He was going to be that guy, the one who had to figure out how to hold a baby without dropping it. Tamari saw it all over his face and snorted. Relax. I'm still me. She patted her belly lightly. Just with a little extra cargo. Ino, don't start, Shikamaru sighed as she stormed up. Shikamaru, I can't believe you didn't tell us. Ino barked, her voice shrill with outrage. I'm supposed to be your best friend. The father-to-be scratched his ear lazily and yawned. Too troublesome. You're unbelievable, she growled. Shikamaru, you bastard. Naruto shouted, charging up to them. You didn't tell me you knocked up. Sakura's fist slammed into his face before he could finish. Idiot, she snapped. She fainted from fatigue. Give her some damn space. Wow, Hinata whispered, eyes glimmering with tears. It's so wonderful. You're having a baby. Tamari smiled weakly. Well, it was supposed to be a secret. Sasuke clicked his tongue as Naruto cradled his face. Idiot. Shut it, Tem. Naruto yelled back. The sky suddenly exploded with color. A cascade of green fireworks lit the night above them, bathing the group in soft light. For a long moment, no one spoke. Tamari looked up from her seat, her expression dazed but calm. Gaara finally stepped forward. He looked at her belly, then into his sister's eyes, and quietly, simply said, Congratulations. I'm fine, Sasuke, Sakura growled through clenched teeth. I can walk. Then walk, he snapped, voice clipped. When her sandal had snapped, she hadn't realized the damage wasn't just to the shoe, it was her ankle, too. A bad twist. And all the frantic running while searching for Tamari. Yeah, that didn't help. The more she pushed through it, the worse it got. Normally she would have healed herself without a second thought, but after a full shift at the hospital and pouring her remaining chakra into helping both Tamari and her unborn child, she was completely tapped out. It infuriated her. Reduced to walking wounded, like a fresh academy student with no healing knowledge and too much pride. Still, Sakura held her head high and forced her tired legs to take a step. Then another. She knew Sasuke was right behind her, could feel his eyes on her back. That only made her more determined. She took a third step, her breath catching in her throat. Then, on the fourth, her ankle gave out and she pitched forward with a sharp gasp. Sasuke moved quickly, catching her before she hit the ground, but she pushed him away, stubborn to the last. I am not relying on you, she snarled, staggering to her feet. I'm one of Team 7, Sasuke, I have just as much power as you. He didn't argue. He didn't scold. Instead, he silently slipped her arm over his shoulders and held her steady. There, he said flatly. You're still walking. Just lean on me, Sakura. She hesitated, then grudgingly let some of her weight rest against him. It wasn't weakness, it was practicality, she told herself. She wasn't playing the damsel in distress. She'd fought too hard, trained too long, to ever let herself be seen that way again. With a quiet breath, she allowed herself to limp alongside him, shoulder to shoulder, into the lamplit streets of Konoha. Don't you have to guard Gaara? She muttered. They're staying at Shikamaru's tonight. I've been relieved, Sasuke replied evenly. She nodded, grateful. Though the festival had ended only 15 minutes ago, the village was still buzzing with laughter and lingering excitement. People passed them, tossing curious glances at the sight of the Uchiha heir escorting the village's top medic home. Two Uchiha symbols side by side. The last survivor and, if the rumors were right, the future mother of his clan. Sakura could feel their eyes on her. She glanced up at Sasuke. He didn't seem to notice. Or maybe he just didn't care. He'd lived his life beneath a microscope of judgment. This was probably nothing to him. Still, it stung. She hadn't put all this effort into getting ready, Ino styling her hair, the soft fragrance she wore, his mother's kimono, just to treat patients and hobble home like an old woman. She'd wanted to spend time with him. Just a few stolen moments. She didn't need fireworks and confessions, just something. He hadn't even noticed what she was wearing. Not a word. Not a look. Nothing. Even Naruto managed to compliment Hinata now. And sometimes that man couldn't find his own face with both hands. Sakura inwardly groaned. All she wanted was for him to say something. That she looked nice. That he was glad she was with him. That he cared. But no. Sasuke stayed silent, aloof as always. Emotionally constipated cactus. Her eyes twitched. Sakura, he said softly. She stiffened. Why yes. You enjoyed the festival. It was more of a statement than a question, but she nodded anyway. Ah, yeah, I did. And, you. Tolerable. Typical. Sakura bit her lip. She wondered, not for the first time, what it might have been like to actually spend the evening with him. Would he have stolen a quiet moment under the lights like Shikamaru and Tamari? Touched her hand without the excuse of helping her walk. The longing twisted inside her, hot and aching. Next year, she said suddenly, avoiding his gaze, we should go together. Sasuke's brows rose slightly. He looked down at her. She was blushing, eyes focused on the ground like it had the answers to every jutsu ever created. Did that mean she wanted to be with him? During the festival, had she missed him? His throat tightened. Was it too much to hope that this tiny invitation, was a sign she was warming up to the idea? To him. He looked forward again, unsure. But then, just as they reached a quieter street, he said, low and a bit awkwardly. That kimono suits you. Sakura stopped breathing. Her heart launched itself into her throat and pounded like drums. Her grip tightened slightly on his shoulder, and she tried to keep her voice steady. Arigato, Sasuke. She stared down at the road. Suddenly, the tiny pebbles scattered along the dirt path were very interesting. Absolutely fascinating. Infinitely more worthy of attention than the Uchiha beside her. Still, a small, shy smile tugged at her lips. Maybe next year won't be so bad. Uchiha Sasuke was in a good mood. Correction. Uchiha Sasuke was in a great mood. He lathered his hair with practiced ease, humming softly to himself as the hot water cascaded down his body. Just yesterday, he had successfully guarded Gaara, escorted Sakura home, and, miracle of miracles, managed not to completely ruin the romantic mood. And to top it all off, he and Shikamaru hadn't even needed to activate a single emergency protocol for the visiting cage. No attacks. No kidnappings. No explosions. He smirked to himself. Oh yeah, Uchiha Sasuke was the man. He squirted the conditioner into his palm and worked it through his hair, his fingers gliding smoothly through the wet strands. For someone who had never shown romantic interest in anyone before, he was killing it. Okay. Sure, the flower attempt had been a total disaster. But Hinata's advice on the kimono? Absolute game changer. He made a mental note to visit her sometime next week. Who knew what other valuable insights she had to offer? Then he heard the door click open. Sasuke wasn't concerned. He knew it was Sakura. Maybe she'd come to wash his back. Or, if he was lucky, maybe she was feeling bold enough to join him. Smirking, he pulled the curtain aside, fully prepared for the best shower of his life. And locked eyes with Naruto. Or maybe not. What the hell, idiot? Sasuke asked flatly, water still dripping from his bangs. I'm showering. No time for that. Naruto burst out, eyes wide and trembling. Sasuke raised a single unimpressed brow. Naruto only got that look when one of two things had happened. Either Hinata was mad at him, or he had royally screwed something up and Sasuke was going to have to clean up. What is it? Sasuke asked coolly, rinsing off and shutting the water. Do you know where Sakura-chan is? Naruto asked cautiously. No, Sasuke said, toweling his hair. Why? Naruto sighed in relief. The hospital's supply shipment has been raided. Sasuke froze mid-motion. Ah. So Naruto had royally screwed something up that Sasuke was going to have to clean up. Again. In Konoha? He asked, stepping out of the shower completely nude, using the towel only to scrub at his ears. No, Naruto mumbled, eyes flicking downward. Sasuke raised an eyebrow, unconcerned with his lack of clothing. Then where? Naruto didn't answer. He was staring. Oi, he stammered. Cover up, would you? Shut up, Sasuke muttered, brushing past him into the hall like the flawless specimen of manhood he was. It was a pity Sakura had already left the house. Especially when she was missing out on this view. Sasuke stepped into his bedroom and pulled open a drawer. So, he said, slipping on a pair of black pants. Naruto cleared his throat, blinking fast. Alright, the shipment Sakura ordered from Iwagakure, gone. Sasuke tugged a gray shirt over his head. Who did you send to get it? Shino, Naruto admitted weakly. Sasuke paused. Shino, the bug guy, excellent at surveillance, murder, and creeping people out at parties. Not exactly courier material. I thought I hadn't seen him around, Sasuke muttered. So what happened? Rogue ninja, Naruto said. He jumped. Ino patched him up this morning, but Sakura doesn't know yet, Sasuke finished, narrowing his eyes. What was in the shipment? Some rare plants for making vaccines, Naruto said. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, right? Sasuke gave him a look that could wither stone. If she had to import it from another country, it's a big deal, idiot. Naruto paled. Why you don't think she'll be too mad at me for only sending one guy, right? I mean, Shino's strong. I didn't think it was a dangerous mission. Yeah, Sasuke said, walking out of the room, drying his hair. She'll probably be furious. Naruto saw his life flash before his eyes. He dropped to his knees and clung to Sasuke's leg. Please, Sasuke. If she finds out, she's gonna kill me. You have to help. She won't kill me if you're there. Sasuke looked down at him, unimpressed. Get off me, idiot. Not until you promise to help. Naruto wailed, clinging tighter. Sasuke sighed. Why do you think I'm heading to the door? Naruto blinked, then peeked around the corner. Sure enough, they were already at the entrance of the Uchiha household. He looked up at Sasuke with wide eyes. You're really gonna help? Sasuke grabbed his cloak and gave Naruto a dry look. Come on, let's go to Ichiraku and figure this out. Yosh! Naruto whooped, jumping to his feet, instantly re-energized. Datbeo! Sasuke smacked him upside the head. Shut up. Haruno Sakura was exhausted. She glanced up at the clock, groaning when she saw the time. Just past noon. Only noon, and already she felt like she'd been hit by a Rasenshuriken and dragged through a sewer. Thanks to some idiot running a shady concession stand at the festival, half of Konoha was suffering from food poisoning. That meant a flood of miserable, moaning patients vomiting their guts out all over her clean hospital. Between changing bed sheets, forcing fluids down stubborn throats, and repeatedly reminding grown adults to please aim for the toilet, Sakura was already running on fumes. Some cases had even required emergency surgery to remove whatever the hell they'd eaten. It was chaos. Ridiculous, absurd, messy chaos. So when she finally, got a short break to herself, the last thing she wanted was to be interrupted. Which, of course, meant her receptionist immediately called her office to inform her that someone was waiting for her in the doctor's lounge. Sakura nearly snapped the phone in half. She stormed down the hall, white coat flaring dramatically with each furious step, her pink hair clinging to her temples from sweat. She was ready to kill. Her first suspect, Sasuke. It had to be that damn Uchiha. Only he would have the audacity to waltz into the hospital like he owned the place, expecting her to drop everything for him. Well, not today. Sakura was done playing the soft, understanding kunoichi. If Sasuke thought she had time to fuck him in the supply closet between patients' projectile vomiting, he had another thing coming. She was going to march into that lounge, punch that beautiful bastard in his smug, perfect face, and remind him that she had a job where people's lives were literally at stake, not a cozy desk at the police station where he could take off whenever the hell he felt like it. Stupid. Pompous. Asshole. She shoved the lounge door open, eyes blazing. Listen, you, she growled, voice venomous. I don't know who the hell you think you are, but you are not the Hokage, and you do not get to summon me like some genin errand girl, and I swear, if you. She froze. Not Sasuke. Gaara of the desert stood calmly from the couch, his robes falling neatly into place, expression unreadable as ever. Quote. I, Anyo, Sakura stammered, color draining from her face. I'm just gonna shut my mouth now. She coughed, awkwardly brushing her sweat-dampened bangs behind one ear. Gaara-sama. I'm sorry. I thought you were someone else. She forced a polite smile and did her best to pretend she hadn't just gone full banshee. What can I do for you? You're not here with food poisoning, are you? Gaara shook his head. Relief flooded through her. He didn't look like someone on the verge of barfing, but Sakura was running on so little sleep she couldn't trust her own instincts anymore. If she had to pump one more friend's stomach, especially after dealing with Lee, Kiba, and Choji, she might actually scream. Twice that morning she'd had to shower. 2 of Makoto-san's beautiful, hand-washed dresses were officially dead. I understand you're very busy, Gaara said evenly. Head medic of Konoha. It's an impressive achievement. His gaze flicked briefly to her Byakugo seal. But not surprising. Sakura blinked. That was high praise coming from him. Arigato, she said, managing a tired but sincere smile. I worked hard for this position. She reached up to rub her aching shoulders. Gaara noticed. What's going on? She asked, slipping off her white coat and draping it over the back of a chair. You need treatment or? Gaara shook his head again, more slowly this time. No, I'd like to speak with you. Alone. His eyes wandered the room, he was clearly hoping for a more private setting. Sakura frowned thoughtfully. A hospital lounge wasn't exactly the best place for a confidential chat. And knowing Gaara, whatever he wanted to talk about was probably serious. Or at least not the sort of thing she wanted eavesdropped on by curious nurses. Besides, she was tired of the smell of antiseptic and vomit. A walk sounded nice. Come on, she said, stepping toward the door. Let's go for a stroll. Konoha's still standing, so I can spare a few minutes. She held the door open for him. But instead of walking through, Gaara stepped forward and placed a hand above hers, gently taking over the door-holding duties. Sakura blinked. She'd opened the door for him. But now he was holding it open for her. She thought chivalry had died with the Fourth Shinobi World War. She blushed lightly. Arigato. As she stepped out, Gaara's eyes caught on the Uchiha crest printed on the back of her dress. He hadn't realized she and Sasuke were married. He filed the information away silently, resolving to keep a respectful distance. He and Sasuke were on good terms, and he had no desire to be on the receiving end of that glare. We can walk around the village while we talk, Sakura offered as he joined her. You'll get to sightsee a bit, too. Gaara didn't respond, but his calm nod conveyed his appreciation. As they passed the front desk, Sakura waved absently to her receptionist. I'll be back in a bit, she called. Try not to let anyone die while I'm gone. Why yes, Haruno-sama. The receptionist squeaked, wide-eyed. Gaara opened the double doors for her again. She smiled her thanks once more. He glanced back at the receptionist curiously. If Sakura was married, why hadn't she taken Sasuke's name? The sun bathed them in warmth as they stepped outside, and Sakura let out a contented sigh, stretching her arms. After a day in cold, sterile rooms, the fresh air felt amazing. She glanced up at Gaara, studying the quiet strength in his expression. It still amazed her, sometimes, to see the man he had become, the calm, wise Kasekage who had once been the unhinged boy trying to kill her. How about the Hokage monument? She asked with a playful grin. It's Naruto's favorite spot. Gaara raised an eyebrow at her suggestion. She grinned wider. Come on. I'll even tell you some embarrassing stories about him. His interest visibly piqued. Ah, send Kiba, Shino, and Hinata, Sasuke said coolly, lifting his tea to his lips. That'll keep the village gossip to a minimum. Shino barely talks to anyone, Hinata knows how to keep a secret, and Kiba. He paused for a sip. Well, he'll be halfway to Suna before he gets the chance to run that big mouth of his. Across the ramen bar, Naruto slurped down his udon and nodded. Sasuke's calm logic was, surprisingly, soothing. Maybe everything will be fine. Maybe Sakura wouldn't find out. Maybe he could sweep the whole supply situation under the rug and get back to pretending nothing had happened. He sighed and let his head drop to the counter with a soft thunk. Oh my, a teasing voice said behind them. Are you two on a date? Naruto groaned internally as he looked up to see Sai and Kakashi standing behind them. No prizes for guessing who made the comment. Kaka-sensei, Naruto exclaimed, jumping at the opportunity to redirect. He beamed and pointed a thumb toward Sasuke. Come sit. Eat some ramen. Tem's treat. Kakashi chuckled under his mask. Sai, of course, ignored the offer and slid into the seat beside Sasuke with an infuriatingly polite smile. So it is a date, Sai confirmed. How romantic. I do hope we're not intruding. Sasuke shot him with a glare sharp enough to cut glass. Sai, unfazed, smiled brighter. I seem to have upset you, Sai continued, tilting his head innocently. Don't worry. I won't tell Sakura or Hinata about your secret rendezvous. Kakashi stifled a laugh. I hear the whole village enjoyed your performance yesterday, Naruto. The future Hokage puffed out his chest. Of course they did. I think they were more impressed that you didn't accidentally kill anyone this year, Sai added. Why you? Naruto lunged across Sasuke to grab Sai. Sasuke ducked instinctively, lifting his tea just out of splash range. Typical. So childish. And Sasuke, Sai said, using him as a shield. Was your date with Gaara-sama as enchanting as they say? I heard you two were frolicking with the children. I hope you didn't go too hard on their tiny little bodies. That did it. Sasuke and Naruto both dove for Sai, knocking over stools in the process. Naruto landed half on top of Sasuke, who let out a disgruntled growl from beneath him. Are we about to witness something naughty? Sai asked, sipping the broth as though he weren't seconds from being murdered. Get off me, idiot, Sasuke gritted out. Damn it, Sai. Naruto rolled off him, face flushed. Keep your mouth shut. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. So, with you guarding Gaara all night, did you at least get to spend some time with Sakura? Sasuke pushed himself back into his seat and brushed some dust off his pants. Quote. I escorted her home. Oh, Naruto's eyes sparkled like a fangirl's. Did you pick her up and whisk her away? Did you cradle her in your arms and confess your undying love before planting a passionate kiss? Sai slurped his soup. I doubt the Uchiha is man enough to do that much. Sasuke ignored both of them. She was limping. I offered to help her walk. She leaned on me. Ah. Naruto poked Sasuke in the side. Did you tell her how pretty she looked? Sasuke glared. Touch me again and I'll break your fingers. Touchy. Kakashi smirked. Did you at least compliment her? I said the kimono suited her. Kakashi started slow clapping. Sasuke shot him a look. Don't you have duties to attend to, Hokage? Sorry, Kakashi chuckled. It's just you never compliment anyone. That was progress. Sasuke scowled into his bowl. Was he really that bad? He thought things had been going well. If you can't say you love her yet, start small, Kakashi offered. Like how I made you run up those trees every day. Chakra control. Fundamentals. So, Sasuke needs to run up a tree? Sai asked, confused. Sasuke smacked him. What I'm saying is, have you ever tried holding her hand? Kakashi asked. You know, like a normal person. Sasuke blinked. That hadn't even crossed his mind. They shared a bed, a house. Wasn't that enough? Why would she want him to hold her hand? He looked at Sai and Naruto, and suddenly lost. They had managed it. Surely they knew something. Ino grabbed mine first, Sai said with a shrug. She was very forward. Kakashi sighed. So helpful. Naruto scratched his cheek awkwardly. Hinata and I, held hands during the war. Sort of. In the heat of the moment. Sasuke stared blankly. That did not help. How did one even begin to hold someone's hand? Did he just do it? Ask first. Wait for her to offer hers. Hey, isn't that Gaara-sama? Sai pointed casually behind them. Naruto whirled around so fast he knocked over his bowl. Hot ramen splashed all over Sasuke's lap. Sakura-chan, Sasuke hissed, grabbing a napkin to dab at his pants. Then he looked up. There she was. Sakura, walking beside Gaara, and they looked comfortable. Too comfortable. Sasuke's eyes narrowed. What the hell were they doing together? Oh dear, Sai said, voice full of innocent wonder. Are they on a date? The men of Team 7 froze, exchanged glances, and scrambled out of Ichiraku ramen like a pack of feral dogs on a mission. I apologize for taking you away from your work, Gaara finally said, his voice quiet but sincere, breaking a 10-minute stretch of silence. Sakura smiled. She didn't mind the quiet. Gaara wasn't the kind of man to fill the air with meaningless chatter, he spoke only when he felt there was something worth saying. She respected that. No worries, she said brightly as they climbed the stone steps leading up to the Hokage monument. I was actually on break when your message came through. Perfect timing. Ah, Gaara replied simply, his gaze lifting toward the mountain. His eyes scanned the chiseled faces staring out over the village, lingering a little longer on an empty spot next to Kakashi that was reserved for Naruto. He studied it, trying to understand why this place had meant so much to his friend. Almost as if she read his mind, Sakura clasped her hands behind her back and began to explain. You see Kaka-sensei's face up there? She asked, nodding toward the monument. Gaara's eyes followed. A few over to the left is Naruto's father, the fourth Hokage. Her smile turned wistful. Since they couldn't be together in life. It brings Naruto peace knowing that one day they'll be side by side, carved into the same mountain, watching over the village. Gaara turned his gaze back to her, studying her face with quiet curiosity. He told you this? Sakura shook her head softly. No, he didn't have to. Naruto and I, we're kind of like siblings. We just know things about each other. She tapped her temple lightly. Some kind of weird telepathy, I guess. Gaara's expression softened. He had always known how precious Sakura was to Naruto. But now he was beginning to understand why. When they reached the summit, Sakura motioned to a nearby bench shaded by a tall pine. Gaara waited for her to sit before taking the spot beside her, silent once again as he searched for the right words. So, Sakura prompted gently, turning toward him. What did you want to talk about? He hesitated. Sakura could feel the weight of his silence, not heavy, but careful. Thoughtful. Gaara was not a man who spoke lightly, and whatever he had summoned her for clearly mattered. She reached over, her fingers brushing his hand in reassurance, and gave it a gentle squeeze. Take your time, she said softly. I'm not going anywhere. He blinked, surprised by her touch, but didn't pull away. Then she let go and leaned back, gazing up at the mountain with a bright, proud smile. Sakura always felt a swell of pride looking at the Hokage monument. Just thinking about Naruto and how far he had come made her smile. He had clawed his way to the top, through scorn and loneliness and 1,000 obstacles. There were times, even as his teammate, when she had doubted he could do it. But she had seen the fire in him, the same fire that Hinata had believed in all along. Unquenchable, relentless. No amount of water in the world could snuff it out. Her gaze drifted back to Gaara, still deep in thought. He and Naruto were so alike. Both had risen from unimaginable darkness, shaped by pain, driven by purpose. Their strength came not just from their power, but from the light they carried inside them. They were protectors, leaders, kind men who would give everything to ensure peace for others. And somehow, both of them had chosen to trust her. Gaara finally spoke, his voice lower than before. It is not easy for me to say this, he began carefully. So forgive me if it comes out strange. Sakura nodded, her smile calm and encouraging. Whatever it is, you can tell me. He drew in a steadying breath, then clenched the red fabric of his robe with one hand. I recently learned that Tamari is pregnant. Sakura's posture straightened slightly. She listened quietly. Kankuro and we will not be able to be by her side as much as we have in the past, he said, the faintest crack in his composure showing. And as much as she tries to hide it, I know Tamari has always feared childbirth. Since. He paused, gaze falling. Since our mother died. Sakura's heart ached at the vulnerability in his voice. The cage rarely revealed emotion, especially not fear. But this was the fear of a brother who had already lost too much. His eyes lifted again, locking with hers, and this time, they didn't waver. What I am about to ask you, he said, standing slowly, I hope you'll take it very seriously. Then, without warning, he bowed. Deeply. His voice trembled with raw emotion. Please, as her doctor, and as our friend, please take care of my sister. A single tear rolled down his cheek. Sakura stared, stunned. The cage, Gaara of the sand, was bowing to her. Her throat tightened. This wasn't just a request. This was a plea from the depths of his soul. She stood quickly and did the only thing that felt right. She wrapped her arms around him. Gladly, she whispered into his shoulder. I'll gladly take care of your sister. She felt the heat of his tears soak into her shoulder as he allowed himself to lean into her embrace, just for a moment. Sakura looked past him to the monument, her gaze landing on Tsunade's face in her mind's eye. Her Shisho, her mentor, the one who taught her not just how to heal, but why. Tsunade had once told her that a true medic never faltered in the face of fear, that to protect life was the greatest honor a shinobi could have. Now, it was her turn to carry that torch. Gaara didn't need to say it aloud. Sakura understood his deepest fear, that Tamari wouldn't make it. That history would repeat itself. That he would lose the only sister he had left. But she wouldn't let that happen. She slowly pulled back, meeting his eyes. His usual calm had returned, but it was laced with gratitude now. Quiet and sincere. I'll take care of Tamari, Sakura said firmly. I'll make sure she and the baby are safe. I swear it. She lifted her chin. I'm Haruno Sakura, remember? What I say goes. She felt a tear slip down her own cheek, but she smiled through it, giving him a firm thumbs up. And I say this pregnancy is going to go smoothly. Gaara let out a soft chuckle, something so rare it caught her off guard. The sound warmed the space between them. He wiped his face with the sleeve of his robe, the edges of his mouth curling into the faintest smile. Arigato, he said, and Sakura knew, no matter what challenges lay ahead, she would honor his trust. I have no idea what happened to you, Sakura said, applying ice to the large bruise on Sasuke's forehead, but you guys need to stop fooling around so much. Uchiha Sasuke glared at her from the bed they shared. He wasn't going to bother explaining that the reason he had such injuries was because someone got a little too excited and fell down on top of him before he had a chance to react. Sasuke's temple throbbed. When Kakashi, Sai, Naruto and Sasuke went off to follow Sakura, they were very surprised to watch what appeared to be a very passionate confession from Gaara to Sakura. Sai assured a wide-eyed Naruto that, yes, it was common when asking the one you loved out to bow before them as a sign of respect. Sasuke had activated his Sharingan to try and see what they were saying, but with Gaara bowing down and Sakura covering her lips with her hands and then hugging the cage, it was very difficult to read. And when Sakura had embraced Gaara, it had been too much for Naruto to handle. He, being at the top of the tree, crashed down on Sai, who crashed down on Sasuke, who then nearly crashed down on Kakashi. The white-haired Hokage just barely managed to escape with a few bruises and some twigs in his hair. Mo, I can't leave you all alone, can I? Sakura sighed, lowering the ice away and placing her glowing green hand on Sasuke's head. You're lucky you don't have a concussion. Sasuke looked at her. He was dying to know if it was a confession from the cage. He wouldn't doubt it. She was a renowned medical ninja, and her talent was known far and wide. But the hug had confused him. Whenever he rejected someone, he would just walk away. Sakura, however, did things differently. Regardless, Sakura was sleeping in his bed. He at least had that advantage over Gaara. Did Gaara say anything to you yesterday? Sakura asked Sasuke lightly. He tensed. She was asking about Gaara now. He stared at her. I mean, she lowered her hand and tugged at his shirt so she could have better access to his wounds. Did he mention anything about his past? Sasuke ground his teeth. No. Sakura nodded slowly. Anything about his family? Sasuke narrowed his eyes until he was looking out through thin slits. No. Sakura sighed and let his shirt drop. Sasuke, however, took the hem of his shirt and ripped it off. He was pissed. He was really pissed. Here he was, lying on a bed that they shared together while she was blabbering away about some other guy. Sasuke wasn't jealous. This wasn't jealousy. This was complete rage. He worked his ass off to get her to notice him, and the second Mr. Sandman came into town, Sakura was all over him. How was that fair? How the hell was that fair? Sakura. She was touching his face again, worriedly. Her jade eyes looked at his temple once more. I missed a scratch, she said softly, thumbing over the torn skin. I'm usually not that careless. She chuckled. Just hold still for a little longer. Sasuke let the anger fall to the ground with his shirt. Her tender gaze bored into his forehead, and he kept looking at her. Her fingers glowed once more. But this time, he let his own hand raise to place it on top of hers. She blinked and lost her concentration. The green glow faded. She looked at Sasuke. His warm fingers entwined with hers and he closed his eyes. He inhaled her sweet scent. Sakura, Sasuke said softly. He drew her to his chest and wrapped his arm around her. The feeling in her chest was similar to the whooshing she got when she jumped from very high places. Finding herself in his lap, Sakura's cheeks reddened, and she tried half-heartedly to pull herself away. Sasuke. Like hell she was escaping. Sasuke held her tighter. She squirmed in response to his grip. Sasuke, what are you doing? She managed to yank herself out of his tight grasp and get some distance. What the hell? She didn't say anything more. She couldn't. Thump. Not when his lips were pressed against hers. Thanks for watching.